This is the Haulin Assets podcast, where we show you how to start and run your own trucking company. Ever wanted to go out on your own? Follow Chris as he goes through the highs and lows of running on his own authority.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Haulin Assets podcast, episode number 135. I am your host, Craig Hanks. Over there, he's Chris. How's it going, Chris?
I'm doing well. How are you, Craig?
You know, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. I'll tell you why. Yeah, it has to do with our topic today.
Oh.
Okay.
Now I'm intrigued.
I'm pretty good. We're going to get to that in a second, but everybody needs to go to haulinassetssllc.com to check out full show notes. Go to motorcarrierhq.com for all the tools and tips and people that you need to help you out getting started on the road. Find us on Facebook. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think of the show, what questions you have, what you want us to address, and we will do so. Chris, am I forgetting anything? Leave a review.
Leave a review. That'd be great. Yeah.
We read those too.
We do. Absolutely.
So, Chris, today we're talking about fitness on the road, or health and fitness. That's probably the better way to put it, right? Yep. Health and fitness on the road. And what a serendipitous topic, Chris. Guess what I'm doing right now?
What are you doing right
now? I'm dieting, Chris.
Man. Ugh.
I know.
Gross.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
But this is a topic that we talked about way back. If you get in the Wayback Machine, go to like episode, what would it have been, 10, 15, something like that. Yeah. This is something we addressed, but we're going to go maybe into a little more depth this time. It's always a good one to revisit every once in a while, honestly.
Yeah, and the diet piece is just like a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about physical health, mental health, and fitness. Right.
So, Chris, you teased before we started the mics. You said you've seen some crazy stuff out on the road, the things that people do in this area. What do you got?
Like some impressive things too. Like you take, for example, when I was driving, I've got if you go back through the social posts way back when, I showed a video of it, but I mounted a gravel bike, which is kind of cross between a mountain bike and a road bike, behind the cab of the truck. And so I'd go out and I'd bike. And so, I'd pull into a shipper receiver, somebody'd see that. And I had quite a few people that came up and talked to me about that. And, even some would pull out the bike that they kept in their cab. And there's actually a whole Facebook group on truckers that bike.
Really?
Yeah. And it's a pretty big thing. It's pretty cool. So there's a lot of guys out there that do that kind of thing. But probably the craziest thing I ever saw, I thought it was awesome. I'm sitting at a shipper waiting to get loaded, it was a shipper receiver. I can't remember if I getting loaded or unloaded, but all of a sudden I look down the line of trucks and there's this dude that had pulled out a full-blown weight bench and weight set. Like he's...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like he's doing bench press, right? He sets the bench right out in front of his truck and doing bench presses, and he's got...
so it was like it was a foldable seat and all that?
Yeah. Like he's doing incline bench presses, and he's got a bar and weights, and then he's got dumbbells and weights, and like he was going to town. Like I was like, wow, that's a dude that takes his fitness seriously. And you could tell he was in good shape. I thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I knew a guy when I lived in France. There was a retired U.S. Air Force colonel that I knew. And when I say retired, this dude was like 88, something like that. And he still did 100 push-ups every single morning before he did anything else.
That's awesome.
Rolled out of bed, did 100 push-ups. So
for him.
Yeah, if he can do it, right, Chris?
Yeah, we all should be able to.
Yeah, no, I am trying to take fitness and health a little more seriously these days, in part because I'm going to be doing a giant pilgrimage out in Germany. I'm going to be hiking a bunch. I mean, a bunch. So lots of walking, lots of weights, so when I say I'm dieting, I'm literally trying to lose weight just so I don't have so much to haul around the countryside.
And I'm guessing you're probably going to add a few extra liquid carbs.
Oh, yeah, some beer pounds.
Yeah.
Well, you know how I've been hydrating, Chris? Do you know what a beer growler is? Those brown jugs with the little handles, 64 fluid ounces, right? You know what else it can hold besides beer? Water. It can hold water. So it's just every day I drink 2 of those.
What is this stuff?
Yeah. So, all right, Chris, we should get on with it and talk about health and fitness on the road, not Germany or beer growlers. Oh, heaven forbid, right? Yeah.
You can't do that on the road. No beer growlers on the road.
All right. So where do you want to start with this? How do you prioritize health and fitness on the road? How do you fit it in to what is an actually pretty busy schedule for a trucker?
Yeah, and priorities is really a big key to this, and we'll talk about that first. But before we get to that, I want to remind everybody we're at the end of August. So if you're listening to this episode as it came out, don't forget you've got to file your heavy vehicle highway use tax, the $22.90, by the end of August. And don't be late, because guess what the IRS likes to do?
They like it when you're late.
Yeah, penalties and fees.
Yeah.
They'll charge you for it. So make sure you're on time. Get that taken care of. But kind of going back to that, today we're going to talk about nutrition, we're going to talk about mental health, and we're going to talk about fitness. And as you mentioned, priorities, I'm glad you started with that, because that's something that is really important when it comes to managing your fitness and health. And so when I kind of sat down and thought about how I kind of wanted this episode to roll out, I thought priorities were really important. So everybody's priorities might be a little bit different. But here are kind of my priorities when I go on the road and I'm driving. First is delivering my load safely and on time. Huge for me. Like the on time thing, like I was rarely, I think there was one time the whole time I was driving that I was late for an appointment, and it was because of something that was out of my control. The in my control, happens. like even when it was, things would happen on the road, I usually build enough space into things that I could still make an appointment on time. Yeah. Even if I blew a tire or there's some kind of repair that needed to be done, I could usually work around that. So delivering my load safely and on time was my first thing. And then my second priority, I've kind of got this one actually split into two.
Like a 2A, 2B?
Yeah, 2A, 2B. So 2A would be administrative tasks for my business. They take a priority. So if I'm, stopped at a shipper receiver, this is probably one of the things I'm going to be working on while I'm waiting. So that was 2A. And then 2B would be my fitness piece. So, we'll talk a lot more about what fitness is for me, and it's different for everybody, but
pulling out the bench, doing your bench presses.
I never carried weights with me. That was never one thing I did. I'm more of a cardio guy anyway, but anyway, so I
think you just made a million enemies on the podcast.
Probably Chris. Nobody likes the cardio guy. So those were kind of 2A and 2B, administrative tasks for the business, and then fitness. And then 3 would be sleep, and 4 was time preparing meals. So for me, the meal prep was kind of low, because I would rather, and we'll talk a little bit more about this too, I would rather sacrifice taste for speed. And so I'm more about a meal that's quick and easy versus something that's like elaborate and gourmet.
Chris, let me ask you a question. When you go to a restaurant, do you order any kind of drink other than water?
A lot of times I'll get a soda.
Okay.
Every once in a while I'll get something on top of that too. Like I might do a lemon, like a fancy lemonade or something, right. Strawberry lemonade.
I just had this picture of you going, nope, no frills. That's a frill.
But when I do water, it's frillless. No ice.
No ice.
No ice. Yeah.
Flat water. No sparkling water.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not European. I don't like this.
So sacrificing flavor for speed, shall we say?
Yeah.
But do you? Well, you know what? Maybe we'll get into this with nutrition. When we talk
nutrition. Yeah, because we'll talk a lot about what that kind of means for me.
What you didn't mention at the top of the show, you said, "Hey, we're going to get into other stuff as well, mental health, for instance." And I didn't notice anything about that in your list. Or is that kind of built in, like, hey, if I can check off my list, then I'm feeling good about myself and all that?
Yeah, so that's a great point. So we will talk a little bit about mental health. And a lot of the times, at least for me, the mental health things are things that I can do while I'm driving. So, and another big priority in my life is my family. But that's something that I can handle while I'm driving. I can call and talk to my wife. I can talk to my kids. We can have conversations. Mm-hmm. We can do all those things while I'm driving. So because you spend so much time driving, anything that's a priority for me that might be above some of those other things on the list that I could do while I'm driving, I haven't really listed that as a priority, even though it might be. It's really the priorities that compete for my time. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So do you want to start with nutrition?
Let's start.
Should we dive right in? You know what?
We've already teased it enough. So
this reminds me of those podcasts that we've done with bankers or lawyers or whatever, where we have to caveat. We're going to need to do that here as well. We are not nutritionists per se, okay? So, we might say things like protein or carbohydrates, but I don't know.
And
Chris,
I'm not a chef by any means.
You don't say with what you just mentioned.
My wife is the cook in the house. Yeah.
All right. So where do you want to start with nutrition? What's maybe the easiest thing about it, the hardest thing about it while you're on the road?
The hardest thing is obviously, one, I think there's two things that make trucking difficult when it comes to nutrition. One is preparing things on the road, because you don't have a full-blown kitchen. So you've got to be able to adapt a little bit and do some unique things. And there's some things that are just plain going to be really hard to prepare on the road. What
did you usually have? A mini fridge and a hot plate?
A microwave, a hot plate, and absolutely a mini fridge. Like, if you're an over-the-road trucker, any truck with a sleeper will typically have a fridge. Or I've even seen guys take out like the passenger seat in their truck and put a fridge there.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Okay. So there's options, and so mini fridge is critical but not essential. Like some of the stuff that I do, like you can get away without a fridge, but then you're really going to limit yourself to what you can take on the road.
Right. Okay. So what do you take with you on the road then? Or what should you take with you? Because I know what you take, Chris, and that's a whole bunch of peanut M&Ms.
I do take a lot of peanut M&Ms. Sometimes. Sometimes I try to, like, you're on a diet right now. The last time I went on the road, I was like, okay, this is a good 4-day period where I can like really buckle down and be good with my diet. And so I didn't take any peanut M&Ms on the road. I did buy one packet in the 4 days, one of the small non-king sized peanut M&Ms.
Sure. Yeah, the sound you
think
heard,
I'm lying, don't you?
You just, ladies and gentlemen, that was the sound of justification coming through your headset there.
Yeah. All right. So I thought the easiest way to kind of go through the nutrition piece, was kind of to break down meal by meal some of the more common things that I take with me and eat. And so again, like, these are simple things. Like this is how I do it. There's a million other ways to do it, and I would love to hear people come on this in the show notes and or on Facebook and comment on
with their ideas,
what their ideas are. I think we can probably get some really good things going here.
Yeah, no doubt.
But so me, again, this is something completely different from my wife. She thinks I'm nuts. I will sacrifice taste for speed. So I want something quick and easy, where she wants something a little more elaborate and tasty.
Sure.
So breakfast. Let's start with breakfast. So one of my common things that I get for breakfast is an egg which you can get at, I know Costco gets them. That's where we get them.
The frozen crisp sandwich type thing?
It's not, kind of, but it's not it's got the bread. Instead of bread, it's got two like formed patty that are shaped like a patty eggs.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then it's got a turkey sausage and a piece of cheese.
So it's just like pure protein.
It's pure
fat.
protein. Yep.
Yeah.
Fat and protein. So you can microwave it, and you can put a microwave in the truck. That's
nice.
an important thing to have in a truck. So I'll for a lot of these things that I'm talking about, I'll provide some links in the show notes so that you can go on into the show notes and see what they are. So the egg which is a big one for breakfast for me. Another really big breakfast, and people are going to think this is gross, but don't knock it till you've tried it. But I'll mix cottage cheese and yogurt. It's like half and half. A serving of cottage cheese, a serving of yogurt, and my wife, she'll put fruit in with it, like raspberries or strawberries.
She is a good and decent person, and you're a monster.
I am, yeah. Okay. I'll sometimes put like raspberries or blueberries, something I don't like. If I have to cut it like a strawberry, no thanks. That takes time.
Are you kidding me right now?
If
I have to cut it, it's not going in, says Chris. I hereby, as Craig, give you all permission to take strawberries with you and a very small knife.
Yeah, so that's a pretty common thing. Protein shakes, and even boiled eggs are another thing.
Oh, sure.
So the boiled eggs are something that I'd cook. I'd maybe boil a dozen eggs and take them with me.
Because those will last 3 or 4 days in the fridge, right?
And even not in a fridge, honestly.
Oh, really?
And they'll last a little bit of time, not refrigerated, but they'll last a really long time refrigerated.
Okay.
And so. And this is like this breakfast, that's not just like my over the road breakfast. Like that's a lot of the times what I'll eat at home. Most of the time, my breakfast and lunch, I'm usually pretty healthy. It's dinner and after dinner that kills my diet. It's that bowl of cereal or 3 bowls of cereal after 6 o'clock.
Yep.
Yeah, I shouldn't do that.
That's not so great. No. Breakfast is, in my opinion, and I bet I'm not the only one out there, breakfast is the easiest one to kind of get a pure routine going. Yeah. Where you wake up and you roll out of bed and you get something out of the fridge. For me, it's cottage cheese and fruit. A lot of that, since I've tried to up my protein intake, it's a lot of cottage cheese, Chris. Yeah. So
you should try the cottage cheese and yogurt. It's pretty good. Vanilla yogurt.
I just did a vanilla yogurt shake with protein powder in it. So that was less tasty than I would like. Yeah. But
I'm the same way. Yeah, that breakfast is a pretty easy one to develop a routine for.
Okay, now, do you want to go to lunch or do you do snacks?
I do a snack in between. Okay. So one thing that I found about me and my habit is if I just go breakfast, lunch, and dinner, by the time I hit dinner, I'm way more like I'm typically hungry and way more likely to overeat and way more likely to eat dinner and then an hour later have the couple bowls of cereal. Yeah. So if I'm disciplined about my snack, like this is how geeky I am. I've actually got an alarm set on my phone to remind me to eat a snack at 10. And then I've got another one to remind me to eat a snack at 3. And so I'll make sure I eat those 2. And I find when I do that, I'm way less likely to overeat for dinner, which is kind of my weakness time. So
I think we've all learned something about you today, Chris. Yeah. So what sort of meals do you like to prepare for lunch?
Well, let's talk a little bit about snack, and then
sorry. That's what I meant to say is snacks.
Yeah, so I usually don't prepare anything. So it's usually like a protein bar. Like I'll go to Costco, the Fit Crunch bars or ones that I really like.
As long as you don't have to cut it, right?
I can just unwrap it and bite like an animal, just like bite it. So the protein bars, and I'll even I was looking at. I'd forgotten one day, and I think it was while I was out on the road, and I was looking at Snickers, and interesting enough, like the small, not the king size Snickers, but the regular size Snickers are really not much different calorie wise and protein wise and everything different than a protein bar.
Really?
So like in a pinch, if I don't have my protein bar with me, I'll stop at a gas station and grab a regular size Snickers, and I'll eat that guilt free. Like if I had enough discipline that I could go buy like the 48 Snickers and not eat them. Yeah, just not eat them all the time. I would keep that around the house.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I can't do
couldn't
that.
Couldn't do it.
No. I'd eat probably 24 of them in 3 days.
This episode, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you by Egg Witch and Snickers.
Is that Mars?
There you go.
And sometimes I'll do the same thing with like the peanut M&Ms. If you get the regular size peanut M&Ms, calorie wise, you're not really taking in much more than a protein bar. It's pretty comparable. And then also like fruit, banana, apple, pear, I'll eat those. But a lot of the times those snack wise won't tide me over for a meal as well as a protein bar. So every once in a while I'll eat a piece of fruit and then reward myself with peanut M&Ms.
There you go. Yeah.
That's justification. Another snack that I like that's really good is you can go to the grocery store and you can get this big packet of individual packets of edamame beans.
Oh, yeah.
You can just throw them. They like steam themselves. You keep them frozen.
Oh, really? Oh, in the microwave.
Put them in the microwave in 3 minutes and you've got edamame beans. And I think I actually really like edamame beans.
How are you saying that?
Edamame.
Edamame? Is that really how it's
I think that's how you say it.
Okay, I always said edamame. I don't.
Well,
all right,
one of the two.
The
tomato, potato. Edamame.
You have to cut a tomato, Chris. So I know you're not eating that out.
We're moving over. Yeah, you can eat it like an apple. True. What are you talking about?
And I would. I don't know about you.
I've done that before. Yeah, a little salt shaker and just like an apple.
Delicious. Okay, should we move on to lunch?
Let's move on to lunch. And I've kind of categorized lunch and dinner because especially on the road, a lot of the times what I'll eat for lunch is no different than what I'll eat for dinner. My go-to, and one of the reasons I really like this is because you don't need a refrigerator, is just peanut butter and honey instead of jam, because jam typically you have to refrigerate. Peanut butter and honey. So bread, peanut butter, honey. You don't have to refrigerate it. And I'll usually eat just one of those for lunch or dinner.
And that's the entire lunch.
That's the entire lunch. Every once in a while, I'll eat 2. If I'm like really hungry or feeling some kind of craving, I'd rather eat a second sandwich than pig out on 4 Snicker bars. So
or 40, 42 or whatever comes in that box.
48 in the box, yeah.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
So that's a good one. Another one that I'll eat is a can of tuna. So I'll not just the small cans, but I'll get like the bigger 12-ounce.
Oh, wow.
Tuna can, drain the water from it, and then douse a bunch of mustard in it. And to me, I think that actually tastes pretty good.
So I was just going to say, you're really leaning into the speed over taste here, Chris.
It's easy. It's quick and easy.
Yeah,
you do have to get a can opener, so in a way, you're kind of cutting it.
Here's a suggestion for you. Throw a half a cup of black beans in there as well.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Yeah, it's not too bad. And, and
those are healthy. Yeah, I like black beans.
Black beans are good. They're good for you.
There you go. Look at that.
In moderation, Chris. Okay, all right. What else you got for lunch and dinner?
You can kind of do the same thing. You've got cans of cooked chicken breasts, like chicken breast nuggets. Sometimes you can even get flavor ones. I'll eat those. There's even like pulled pork ones that you can get. So it's all in a can, and it's high in protein, not a whole lot of carbs. I'll eat those. Pair it sometimes with some steamed vegetables that you can get. Frozen steamed vegetables you can microwave really easy. They're not too hard. I'll bring leftovers from home. If I've got some leftovers just in a Tupperware,
I'll makes
eat those.
Sense. Yeah.
And then you can also, like, circling back to tuna, you can get those tuna packets. You just open them up and eat them, and a lot of times they come with tons of different flavors.
Oh, yeah.
My problem with those is I usually need to eat at least 2 of them, if not more, to feel like I've got pretty close to a meal. And they're not cheap when you're buying them a bunch at a time like that. That's why the can and the mustard is good enough for me. It's quick, easy, and you buy the cheap, not the white, expensive tuna. You buy the cheap one. It's like $2 a can.
That's still, it's a fair bit. Yeah. What about chicken, beef, those sort of things? Do you take those on the road?
Every once in a while.
Well, you mentioned the cans of chicken.
Yeah, so before I go, like if I've got time to prep, I'll grill maybe 4 or 5 chicken breasts. And so then just throw them in the fridge, and I'll eat the chicken breast for a meal. And I'll do the same thing sometimes with hamburger patties. I'll just make the patty, throw some cheese on it, and refrigerate that, and eat that later on down the road. And if I get in a crunch, man, I grow some people out again. I'll just eat it cold.
Did
you just throw up? Did you pull a garbage can?
Yeah. All I'm saying is, I hope that listeners take from this list of ideas that you've got, I hope they find some inspiration. I'm not sure I'm ready to tell everybody to eat like Chris on the road.
I'm giving you my ideas of what I do, but yeah, this is not a meal plan for everybody. Again, I'm fast and easy, so you may want to eat one meal of this fast and easy like I do, and then be a little bit more elaborate.
Was that your prison nickname, wasn't it? You said I'm fast and easy.
This is a family show, Craig.
Oh, sorry.
We're not going to go into that.
Okay, well, sorry. Yeah.
Be awkward.
Hey, it's my job to derail when you're on a roll, Chris. All right,
that was a good one.
Any other nutrition tips?
No, just one thing I would say is, it's something I've always struggled with, health, and not so much the fitness side, but I'm not a very good eater, and that's one of the reasons that I'm so big into running and that cardio stuff, so that I can eat more.
Gotta earn it,
not feel too bad about it. The military will only let me get so fat, and so it's something I've consciously had to work at. And so one word of advice I would give is, sometimes we succumb to temptation. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just
you and literally everybody else on the planet.
Yeah, we all do. And so just do better tomorrow.
Yep. All right. Speaking of which, actually, that kind of leads into mental health, which I think is the next thing we want to talk about. Don't beat yourself up to the extent possible. That's going to be part of it. But why don't you take it away, Chris? What do you want to talk about with mental health? What does that mean to you on the road?
That's a great question. So mental health, I'm no mental health expert. And
caveat.
Yeah.
Right.
I did talk to my sister-in-law, who is a mental health professional, and she gave some really good thoughts and advice. And so I'm going to share some of those here as well. But mental health it's incredibly important. And it's one of those things that's really hard to juggle when you're on the road. There's a lot of challenges that come with it. And I don't care who you are and how strong you are. All of us at one point or another, or in some form and some degree or another, we all struggle with mental health. And, in the past, I think especially there's been a big stigma with that. I think one of the cool things the military's done in the last 5+ years is really trying to tackle that and recognize that it is something we all struggle with. My wife and a couple of my girls struggle with it and with anxiety, and they take medication for it. And that medication has been a game changer. I mean, so mental health and the struggle is real, and there's no shame in that. And we all should, do our best to help with that. So what we're going to talk about are some of the things that I do to kind of help with my mental health and some of the suggestions from my sister-in-law.
Well, and we should also note that it's something that comes and goes, right? It often, not necessarily every diagnosis or every condition out there is going to come and go, but oftentimes something like anxiety or depression, just because you have been feeling great for the last, several months or year or whatever, doesn't mean that something's not going to happen, or, wires get crossed and chemistry goes all haywire, right? And so it's something to watch out for all the time. You don't want to get anxious about the possibility of anxiety, but it is something to keep an eye out for.
It is, and
for everybody.
That's one of the points my sister-in-law made, is that we need to kind of be in tune with ourselves, and a lot of the times you can kind of feel an anxious episode, or a bout of depression coming on. And you need to learn to recognize what those signs are for you. It may be something as simple as like a pit in your stomach, or maybe you're just starting to feel sad and can't get over it. There's a lot of different things. And in the show notes, I list some of these out and talk a little bit more about them. But, you've got to learn to recognize what those are. And so when you can feel those coming on, it's being proactive. Like everything in life, usually like that ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. If you can kind of attack it or confront it early on in the process, you oftentimes can avert the situation. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit about is, how do you go about doing that? And what are some of those things that you can do?
Okay. So you got any techniques for us? So
one of the things that she really kind of emphasized is that it's always good, like when you're in a good spot, it's good to kind of develop a plan of, when I recognize one of these things in me coming on, I'm going to develop a plan for, these are the things that I'm going to do to kind of help mitigate it. And so developing that plan, and that plan is going to be a little bit different for everybody, but there's a bunch of things. And again, we'll talk about them, but they're also in the show notes that you can do. And so like one of the things that for me that's good is if I feel like, I'm getting anxious about something, is to talk to somebody. And so she recommended that you should have, 3 people that you can call and talk to if you feel like, something's coming on.
Yeah. 3 people you can call.
3 people.
So does that include your immediate family, your wife, your kids, or whatever, or is it
just somebody
outside
that
of your...
it could be anything. It's just somebody that you feel like you can call and trust and talk to. And, maybe even if it's somebody you really trust, talk about your mental health struggle, or, hey, I'm starting to feel sad, or I'm starting to feel anxious about this, and, kind of talk through it with that person. A lot of times talking it through helps you kind of get it out of your chest and kind of helps you confront it a little bit more.
Okay. What else might you do?
That's one. And, doing something that you enjoy, like listening to music or listening to the Haulin Assets podcast
over and over and over,
or any other podcast, so listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks. A lot of times, often what this is just something that's going to help you help distract you from whatever it is that's causing your anxiousness or depression.
Okay.
And another good thing to do is take a break from driving. If you've got it in your schedule where you can, pull over for 15 minutes or however long, part of your 30-minute break, hit a rest stop. This is what I like to do is I'd hit a rest stop and then just do laps around the rest stop. Some of those rest stops are really pretty, and, just getting some fresh air and walking around a lot of times will help.
I learned something interesting, Chris. Speaking of getting out of the truck and just walking around a little bit, this will tie in with the fitness as well. Did you know walking burns almost as many calories as running?
Really?
And so if you walk for a half hour around that truck stop, your mind is going to be put a little more at ease, but your body will as well. So not bad.
It's good for you. And that's actually one of the things we'll talk a little bit in just a second, is that kind of that physical fitness exercise, and how it helps your mental health. So another thing you can do, especially if you're really feeling bad, is you can call the crisis hotline. I don't know if you've heard about this, but kind of it's a similar vein as the 911, but it's 988. You call 988, it's going to put you in contact with somebody that you can talk to, and that they can, they know what they're doing. They're professionals and can help you through whatever it is that's causing you a challenge at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. 988.
Yeah, and I've got a link to kind of what it is if you want to learn more about it in the show notes.
Cool. Okay.
But the last thing that you don't want to do is try to distract yourself in an unhealthy way. And so the most common unhealthy ways would be drugs, alcohol. Obviously, especially in a commercial vehicle on the road.
I was just going to say.
You don't want to be doing that. That can really ruin your life. But even if you're at home as part of your 34-hour reset, oftentimes, turning to an alcohol or drugs all it does is it at best a temporary reliever, and a lot of the times it just makes things worse.
Right. Those growlers are for water, everybody.
Yes, water.
No, that's a good point. Okay, so anything else that we want to know about, kind of general facts or things about mental health?
Let's talk about just some general things that really help with your mental health. And I know this one's incredibly important for me, is just getting a decent night's sleep. Like I feel like I can function on less sleep than most people, more in that like 6-7 hours a night realm. But when I start getting 4 and 5 hours of sleep regularly, that has a huge impact on my mental health. Like it makes me ornery, makes me cranky, more susceptible to anxiousness, depressive thoughts, that kind of thing. And so, sleep is important. And
so, what if when you're out on the road, that's not super easy?
It makes it
right?
harder. Absolutely. And so what you need to do is you need to make sure you can make your cab comfortable. And so like temperature wise comfortable. I think another big thing is a mattress topper. That, the mattresses that come in a truck typically are shit.
What, Chris?
They're terrible.
You're kidding me.
Yeah, they're the worst. Not much better than a camping
So much
air
for
mattress.
a family show, Chris,
Yeah,
by the way.
I know, I'm swearing. But you get those memory foam, like the 2 to 4 inch toppers, man, that makes all the difference in the world. I can sleep on one of those in a truck, and if I'm having a hard time sleeping, it's not because of the mattress.
Yeah. It's just, you can go get those for $20 over at Home Depot, right?
Home Depot, Amazon, all over the place. I've got a link for that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Just an option there. And I think you can get them as low as like $50.
Oh yeah. I'm actually thinking of the camping pads where they just got 3 inches of pure foam.
And maybe that, something like that works too. Like there's a lot of different things. Just find something that's comfortable for you so you can be comfortable. Another thing that I do is I use earplugs. You can just buy those really cheap foam ones on Amazon, and they are really good. The thing you have to be careful with that is you need to make sure if you've got to wake up for an appointment or something like that, or to get back on the road, you've got an alarm that's loud enough
to wake you up.
It's going to wake you up. This is the only cautionary tale, but I sleep with earplugs when I'm on the road.
Okay.
And then another thing for me, and this everybody's going to be different. I don't like to sleep in truck stops because they're just so noisy and they're bright.
Oh, interesting.
And a lot of times you can, the shades in the truck do a really good job of blacking out light. So that's not as big of a deal, but it's just half the trucks in a truck stop are idling. Sometimes people yell. It gets loud. I'd much rather go to like a rest stop or along the side of the road somewhere, typically quieter, and I can get a better night's sleep.
Okay. All right. What else you got? General tips.
Another general thing just on your mental health is to interact socially. And trucking, the problem with trucking, it's so very isolated. You can't really rely on social connections the same way you can when you're not trucking. And so it's important that you cultivate and develop those social connections. So you're calling family members, you're talking to friends, you're developing that relationship, even when you're on the road. Stay in contact.
Maybe with some shippers or brokers, or maybe not.
Maybe
that's
it's good to network.
Interaction.
Yeah, and professional interactions help too. Like if you can be social with the person that you're working with or dealing with, that's good and that's healthy, and that helps build a stronger relationship.
Yeah, I was half kidding, but I mean that was the whole thing about COVID, right? Everybody was working from home, except for you truckers, of course. Everybody was working from home and they weren't getting that interaction in the office. So
you need that.
So call your broker.
You can get it at truck stops. If you're done for the day, go in and a lot of times in a truck stop you'll find other truckers that want to talk and are social, and that's a good way to do that. And shippers and receivers too. Like I was talking about how sometimes when I was backing into a door, somebody'd see the bike that's on the back of my truck, and they'd come and make a point of talking to me about it because they like to bike on the road too. So you'll find stuff like that and reasons to talk to people. If the guy next to you has got his window rolled down, shoot the breeze for a while. That oftentimes that's a good thing.
I was just at a concert in Denver, Chris, and made what I call 3-hour friends. I love 3-hour friends. They could be 3-minute friends. They could be 30-minute friends. But those people that you're not necessarily going to see them again even. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but why not make a friend for a few hours?
It's good.
And hang out for a while.
Yeah. Find some commonalities, some similar interests, and you find something that two people are interested in. You can be vastly different in other areas of life, but you'll have a good conversation for a while, and that's a good thing to do.
Yeah. All right.
Two more things.
Two more.
So this one, and this is a big one for me, and it's interesting. You read more and more studies of this. So that working out, fitness, and it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. It can be the 30-minute walk or the 15-minute walk, like you were talking about, has a huge impact on your mental health. The more you are physically fit, and the more you do some kind of not necessarily being physically fit, but doing exercise, will help your mental health. It affects your mental health in a positive way. I think we're finding out more and more than we ever thought. So that's one of the things that as a driver, I think you need to try to figure out a way to make that a routine, even if it's just going for a walk at the shippers. Like we'll talk a little bit more about some of the things that I've done.
Sure.
We'll get into that, but working out, we'll leave it at that for now.
But last tip for mental health then is?
And this is another one that's important for me, is if you're feeling anxious about something or you're feeling depressed about something, oftentimes whatever that is that we're anxious or depressed about is something that's happening to us right now. And I try to always have a long-term perspective on things and think, okay, this is just I tell myself this is just a short, temporary bump in the road. It's hard right now, but we're going to get through it and we're going to get over it. And that oftentimes helps me to shed that, that panic or depressed or anxious feeling.
Catastrophizing instinct.
Oftentimes, because it's right in front of us, it seems overwhelming. But if you look at it with a long-term perspective, you're like, okay, one step at a time, we can get through this.
Yeah.
It might be hard, but I don't need to dwell on it. This isn't going to last forever.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that's, it's easier said than done perhaps, but you can practice it with smaller things. You don't have to wait for a crisis to practice this sort of thing, right? So I don't know, you stub your toe and you can actually start to think in these terms. Well, I stubbed my toe, and it hurts like the dickens right now. But, in 10 minutes, I'll be fine or whatever. I don't know. But whatever the little thing is, you feel embarrassed. Something didn't go right on the road. Yep. Practice that, and then it'll work out for you in the long run.
Yep, for sure. So one last point I just kind of want to make is, there goes the Jets.
Yep, there they go. I've got the window open, so all those people who are like, we can't even hear it. Well,
you heard that one.
Yeah, I know you hear these guys right now. So, all right, Chris.
So the one thing I want to just say is, don't beat yourself up. Oftentimes we're way too hard on ourselves, and you need to be kind to yourself and realize that none of us are perfect. We shouldn't expect perfection out of us. So if you're having a mental health struggle, don't dwell on it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Mental health and struggles are part of our human existence. It's very normal. And in trucking, it's very normal. I don't care who out there says, oh, I never struggle with, I'm tough and I'm strong. And that person's probably struggling from it the most. They just like to hide it, which is usually the worst thing to do.
Right.
And so be kind to yourself. Realize you're not the only one out there that are having these challenges. We all do to one degree or another. And be kind to yourself.
Yeah. All right, Chris, our final section is on fitness. And, well, we've already touched on this with the other two a little bit, but where do you want to start with fitness?
So let's talk about, I think so there are a couple things that make fitness on the road challenging. One is finding the time for it. And then two is being able to take a shower, at least for me. Like that was like, cause when I work out, like I go for a run, I usually come back and I look like I just stepped out of a swimming pool. So like I'm drenched in sweat and
been there.
You want to be able to take a shower pretty soon after. So let's talk a little bit about like when I drove or when I drive, the kind of the routine that I get in. I usually for my workout try to do one of two things. The thing I like to do the most is wake up, go drive for a couple hours, and then drive for at least 3. Because then if I stop a little bit after 3 hours, that means I've got 8 more hours of drive time, and I don't have to stop during that 8 hours for a 30-minute break. So I'm kind of using that, that workout time is in conjunction with my 30-minute break. Okay. And I'll take more than 30 minutes. I'm not saying it's just 30 minutes, but it's not like the point is I don't have to take my break to work out and then take another 30-minute break. That break for working out is going to be my 30-minute break.
Yeah.
So that's my ideal situation. Drive for a while and break up the drive time with a workout and take a shower. So stop at a truck stop where I can go for a run and then go take a shower. And that's like the ideal situation.
How long are your workouts, military man, usually? You said longer than 30 minutes often.
My go-to run is a 4-mile run. And that's probably what I do 80 to 90% of the time. And so that takes me actual run time. Like if you talk about a warm up and a cool down, I'm usually done right around 40 minutes.
Okay.
And then, 20 to 30 minutes for a shower. Right. So I'm usually back on the road in an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. Okay. Is my total break time. And if I've got a little bit longer time in my schedule, sometimes I'll take 2 hours and make a meal of it too and be on the road. So that's like my ideal situation. The other thing that I'll try to do is if that won't work out, I'll try to do a workout before I get on the road. And then take a 30-minute break sometime during the day and take a shower.
Right.
Then the last thing and the thing I least like to do is do all my drive time, stop for the end of the day and work out and take a shower. Okay.
So that's how you like to do it. You don't like to work out at the end of the day. I know a lot of people do, though.
I'm not a huge fan of that. Yeah. I like to get my workout done early.
Okay.
When I'm doing it at home, it's usually like the first thing I do when I wake up.
Yeah. Well, one nice thing about it is if you go with plan A that you're talking about, 3 hours of drive time, good 30 to 45 minutes of exercise, and then get back out on the road, you're going to be more alert on the road as well, right?
Absolutely.
So
that's why I like to do it that way. Break up the drive time. Yeah. It makes the day go by really well.
Nice.
Another thing that I want to talk a little bit about is there are times when I couldn't do a shower, and so I do like a baby wipe shower, or there's actually soap you can get that's rinseless soap.
Oh, wow.
And so you can kind of lather yourself up with that, and you don't have to have water to rinse off. It's not, neither of those situations are ideal, but I've found that especially with the baby wipe shower, like if I can essentially kind of dry off a little bit before I wipe myself down with baby wipes, I don't really get too stinky.
It works okay.
Especially if I'm not doing that multiple days in a row.
That could get rough.
It kind of like accumulates and then it can get bad. But if you do that one time and then take a shower the next day, it's usually not too bad.
All right. So you mentioned, I want to talk about types of workouts that you do. And now we're going to get your workouts that you do, and then I'll give people the regular non-military, less fit version of whatever it is that you suggest. But what do you got?
So sometimes as simple as like I've talked about walking, I'll get to a shipper receiver and, it's usually an hour or 2 hours, sometimes even more, to get loaded or unloaded. And some of them have rules that you can't do this, but most of them, there's like a little walking path. Even if it's walking to the receiver door and back to the truck, just, I'll do
over and over
a bunch of laps of that. Yeah. And you see other people do that sometimes too. And so it's not an uncommon thing. And, some places have facilities that are a little nicer. I've even gone to places where I've talked to the shippers and receivers and like, hey, how long am I going to be? Well, it's going to be a couple hours. Do you mind if I go for a jog? And they'll look at you like you're crazy. You want to go run? I'm like, yeah, can I go I'll be away from the truck for 45 minutes. You've got my phone number. If you need me to come back sooner, I'll come back sooner. But I've most of the time they're like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And so I can get a workout in while I'm sitting at a shipper receiver, and it's awesome. And I've even done things so that walking, I'll do that running. If I don't want to leave or I can't leave, I've got a jump rope that I'll keep in my truck, and I'll do some jump rope, sit-ups, push-ups, just kind of those body work, calisthenics, air squats, lunges, those kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And you can get really good workouts doing that kind of stuff.
How many push-ups do you do in one go? Not like I'm not talking about reps, but like a full workout. You're doing 100 push-ups?
I'll probably do 100. Yeah.
Okay.
And I can't do that like straight anymore. I used to be able to. I'm probably more like 20 if I'm lucky, especially with the shoulder issues that I've got right now. So
he is human.
And you know what? Like I'm not afraid to get down on my knees and do push-ups from my knees.
No, it's going back to the no shame thing. There's no shame.
No shame.
You need to do, if you say my goal is 50 push-ups, do 50 push-ups. And if 30 of those are from your knees,
That's
for
fine.
it.
Yeah. Like I'll do that, especially if I'm trying to get muscle fatigue. I'll do 20 regular ones, and then I'll just do from my knees until I can't do them anymore.
There you go.
So there's no shame in that.
Okay, excellent. So are you doing this when you're out on the road every day that you're on the road?
I try to do this the same as when I'm at home. So yeah, I usually, when I'm at home, I try to work out 5 to 6 days a week, and I'll usually do 3 harder workouts a week. So that may be, instead of my 4-mile run, that may be a 6-mile run, or it may be I try to do a speed workout one day and then just a really light, easy 4-mile run the next day, and kind of rotate hard, easy, hard, easy, hard, easy, like that.
Okay.
So I usually try to do that many.
Okay. Well, Chris, any other thoughts on fitness or any of the rest of it, really?
Just like with all of it, and especially with fitness, if you miss a day or you don't have a great day, don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah.
At least you're out there, you're giving it an effort. And there are some days where I'll wake up where I'm like, I don't even want to run 4 miles today. I'll do a 30-minute walk. At least I'm doing something.
Yeah. My goal, my daily goal, 10,000 steps. Okay. And I've done this now for 3.5 weeks, Chris.
Nice.
Every
Good
single
job.
day. And I figured out it takes about 90 minutes at a brisk pace to get 10,000 steps. And you don't have to do that all in one go, right? So if nothing else, I will tell you this. I was doing next to nothing before. And then I said, you know what? I can do 10,000 steps a day. And in the last 3.5 weeks, I feel so much better. I feel so much better, Chris.
It blows my mind. Like even 20 pounds, like when I put on an extra 20 pounds and then I go back and because usually when I gain it slowly over a really long period of time and you don't really notice. But then when I lose it, I typically lose it a little bit faster.
Yeah.
And when I've dropped, I get 10 to 15 pounds into that. I'm like, why do I ever let myself get 20 pounds, let myself gain that additional 20 pounds? Because I feel so much better when I don't. My body moves better. Your
mind is working better.
Everything feels better. My clothes fit better. It feels way better. And so, but it's a struggle. Like I yo-yo like that. I wish I had a better answer, but do something.
Yeah.
It always makes you feel better.
Well, Chris, can I sum this up in an impact tip style, like quip?
Please do.
And that is work to live, right? You can work to live or you can live to work. And in this case, the whole point of everything we're talking about, the nutrition, the fitness, the mental health stuff, the whole point of this is you're not always out on the road. You are going to be living your life and you want to do so happily and healthily. Yeah. You want to do so in the best way possible. And trucking is the kind of job that if you let it, can ruin that. You're not digging ditches. You're not swinging an axe at a tree for 8 hours a day. Your body is going to need that extra little boost of some decent nutrition, some good exercise, some good mental health exercises. And if you do that, then the rest of your life will be happier around your trucking, right? How's that? Is that fair?
That's a great way to tie the bow and end on it. Just get out and do a little something. It's trucking's hard. And like you said, more so than any other industry, like you're literally sitting on your butt up to 11 hours a day. Like you need to get up and stretch your legs, and it will help you more than just about anybody else out there.
There you go. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. What I'm going to do, I should have mentioned this at the top of the show, but the show notes are quite long, quite detailed. A lot of the stuff that we talked about, we're going to put those in the show notes. The links Chris talked about, those are going to be at haulinassetsllc.com. And so I will put an abbreviated version just in your podcatcher, so you can check that out. But there will be a link where you can go straight there to Haulin Assets LLC. Go check out the whole thing. So you can get Chris's tips, the specific workouts and foods that he's suggesting. And then, like we said, definitely when you're there at Haulin Assets LLC, put a comment in, let us know meal ideas, workout ideas. Genuinely, we're not just saying this because, hey, we like the engagement or whatever. We want to know the specific things you guys do, and what suggestions you'd have for the rest of us. So, Chris, thanks for coming.
Good to be here.
Thanks to everybody else for listening, and we will see you all in a couple weeks.
Catch you next time.